Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining our live broadcast from today. My name is Tony Beeston, and I'll be your host. In this session, we'll be covering what's new in AutoSys 12.1, and we have two speakers to take us through that subject. Before we start, some housekeeping. We are in a public webinar, so your phone lines will remain on mute. If you have a question from today's presentation, please enter it into the Q&A panel within WebEx, and we'll get to these questions at the end. This webinar is being recorded and will be published in the community, the Broadcom Software Academy, and the Next Automation newsletter. And if you gave permission when joining this session, I will email you a link to it afterwards. Now, with that done, I would like to introduce you to our first speaker. Valerie Fowler is the product manager for AutoSys here at Broadcom, and so is the perfect person to open up and take us through what's new in AutoSys. Valerie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tony. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining Mike and I today as we talk about the topic of what's new with AutoSys. So just quickly here with the agenda, we've tried to break this down into a few categories. So we're going to be talking about security and credential improvements. We've got the new job types with Kubernetes and OpenShift. We've got some UI enhancements with AutoSys, the Swagger documentation, email notifications, and template changes. And then we're going to follow it up with a demonstration. Mike's going to just kind of give you a quick view of what some of these new enhancements look like. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're happy to announce that we released the 12.1 version of AutoSys on October 27th, and I hope that everyone did receive the announcement letter. And just a reminder, if you are not receiving these announcements and you would like to, you need to log into the Broadcom support site, and in the upper right-hand corner where your name is, there is a drop-down menu and you will see an option for notifications. So you click on this and then you can go in and you can select which products you would like to receive notifications for. And also along the same vein, I want to remind everyone that we have already sent out the end of support notification for 11.3.6 SP8. The date for this is October 31st, 2023. So in the area of security and credential improvements, so this here is one of our marquee features. AutoSys can now integrate with CyberArk. It's going to provide you with, easier and more secure management of privileged accounts. Instead of having to maintain the passwords within AutoSys Secure, which can create a bit of an administrative challenge trying to keep things current, you can now have these highly sensitive passwords centrally stored, logged, and managed within the CyberArk vault. Now, CyberArk supports two different types of credentials. One is the CP, or credential provider, which is installed locally, and the other option is the CP, which is the central credential provider. And I would like to point out that it is the CP that is the one that the AutoSys is integrating with. So this means that there is a requirement to have the CP installed on the same server as the scheduler. And if we take a look at the picture here, it provides a high-level depiction of how the integration works. So as mentioned, the credential provider, or CP, needs to be installed on the same box as the scheduler. The CP retains a cache with password and other connection-related information. Whenever there is a change in the vault server, the background process will obtain the latest password and update this cache version. And then there's also a CyberArk password SDK, and that gets installed as well. And the SDK is what AutoSys uses to retrieve the password information. So that just gives you a quick overview of what the integration looks like between CyberArk and AutoSys. And as I mentioned, this is one of our marquee features for this release. The next enhancement for 12.1 is the introduction of security profiles. Security profiles is a new object type that's introduced to help manage security credentials. Prior to this release, we supported just the password and key credential SSH key. As we're expanding the types of applications that AutoSys can integrate with, the requirement has also expanded to support additional authentication credentials. So with the introduction of this new security profile, we're providing an artifact that can be used to define and manage credentials. The credential types that can be supported are, of course, the password and the SSH key, as well as the newly added token, key file, and key value pairs. So these security profiles are managed through the AutoSys Secure Client, and you have the option of storing them internally, or they can be stored within a password vault. So the next thing we have is the GMSA support. So we've added support for running of jobs under GMSA accounts. These are what they call the group managed service accounts that are available on Windows machines. These service accounts provide automatic password management, and with supporting these accounts, it eliminates the password administration that you would normally have to maintain within AutoSys. But one thing I do want to point out is, you need to be aware that although these do provide the benefit of eliminating password management within the scheduler, it could potentially create a security exposure because if someone knows the name of the service account, that they can run a job without the any credentials. So even though we added this based on customer requests, we do suggest that you proceed with the appropriate caution if you want to take advantage of it. And then the next enhancement is the override action permission. In order to perform a one-time override action, a user requires write access for the job in question. And we had an enhancement request asking for a method that would allow a user, perhaps someone in operations, to issue a one-time override that will impact just the one instance of the job without having to grant them write access to the job. So we've added the new override action permission that will grant a user this one-time ability without having to grant them access that would allow them to make any kind of a permanent update to the job. All the same functionality exists as before. The only difference is that instead of checking if you have write access, it checks for override access instead. The action that is taken as part of the override will only be valid for the next immediate run of the job. So the next area is the Kubernetes OpenShift support that we have. So I'm hoping that at this point, most of you are already aware that we have had the capability to start and monitor to completion Kubernetes related activities for, I'm going to say, almost the last 2 years. We've certainly been trying to spread the word and, make our users aware of this. And this has been something we've accomplished through the plugin extensions, and we have been trying to actively promote them. In the 12.1 release, we started working on implementing a framework within AutoSys so that we could more easily and quickly implement new job types. So with the emergence of, the massive migration to the cloud that we're all in the middle of, we're continuing to receive many requests to have the AutoSys product integrate with the new cloud native applications. And I anticipate this trend, to continue. And we want to be able to introduce these new tightly integrated job types as quickly as possible. So we felt that making the investment in this new framework was a high priority for us. So using this newly built framework, we have taken the OpenShift Kubernetes plugin extension and we've converted it into 4 new job types in this release of AutoSys. So basically, you're going to, see the same capabilities that are available via the plugin extension, but it's just a bit more tightly integrated and easier to use, particularly when, defining or editing jobs. So as you can see on the slide, the new job types include scale up or scale down of Kubernetes deployments, the scale up or scale down of OpenShift deployment configs. You can run a Kubernetes job or you can run a Kubernetes command. And then one final thing I'm going to add that's related to this topic. In release 12.0, we started supporting variable substitution, and at that time it was for the HTTP job and the SOAP job types. So now we have extended the support for the variable substitution for these new job types that are listed here, plus the POJO job. So I've also slipped in a slide into the deck here that it is not directly related to 12.1 enhancements, but this is just part of our effort to keep you well informed of what we are working on. So if you've been to any of our events, our roadmaps, our webinars over the past year or so, you've probably seen a similar slide to this. And we have recently added a few new integrations, so I just want to bring these to your attention. At the bottom of the slide, you can see some of our latest integrations, and these include publishing and subscribing to Kafka topics, triggering and monitoring AWS step functions. We have the new S3 integration for cloud storage, which is similar to our file watcher. And this can be used with both AWS and IBM. And lastly, we have our integration to AWS Lambda to trigger and monitor Lambda functions. So as always, if you see something on here that interests you, please open a ticket with support and let them know, and they will get the appropriate code loaded to that ticket and available for you. So on to the next topic, which is enhancements to the AutoSys UI. So we have the hide/unhide parameter option that's related to job properties. So this feature is intended to improve ease of use, allowing you to remove from view those sections that are not going to be used, and therefore, no need to have them taking up real estate or confusing your users. In the UI, you'll see a new section under configuration, and there's a label there called show panels. And within this show panel section, you'll see a list of panel types that you can select via the checkbox, which ones that you want to see or don't want to see. This is an option that pertains to all job types, and there's no change to the default behavior. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this is one of the things that Mike's going to maybe show a little bit more about in his demo. Next up is agent inventory. So, as you are aware, we introduced the agent inventory feature in 11.3.6 SP7, which provided the ability to, maintain the agents across your enterprise through the web UI. We made some enhancements in the R12 release, and then again, this 12.1 release, we've added a few more things. So the first enhancement is that users are now able to download and install logs for upgrade and rollback activities through the agent inventory. So this log file download is available for a single agent. The feature is available based upon the upgrade permissions, and the log directory content is downloaded as a zip file. The second item is the introduction of an EAM policy that will control permissions around who can do uploads and updates. So this new EAM policy is called the Object Control Agent Installer Default, and this has been added under the Object Control. The third enhancement has to do with what agent inventory actions you will have in your list of options based upon your permissions. Basically, as the picture on the screen shows, you'll have available to you those actions with which you have permissions for. And then the last enhancement is the introduction of the auto refresh feature, allowing for the automatic update of agent information rather than having to rely on manual updates. A new preview option has been provided in the Enterprise Command Line dialog. The purpose for adding this enhancement is that it allows you to preview and edit a file containing a GIL definition before importing it. Note that there is a max file size of 5 megabytes. If you do try to select a file size that's greater than 5 megabytes, it'll allow you to import it, but will not be available for any type of preview or edit. Next topic is Swagger documentation. So as more and more customers want to open up the AutoSys REST APIs for various operations to their applications groups, we've received some enhancement requests to expose the REST APIs through Swagger. Swagger makes it much easier to use REST APIs, exposing the APIs in a standard, easy to use format. Without this enhancement, and previously a user would need to, reference the AutoSys documentation to understand the usage and all of the options and parameters that were available to use these APIs. And then they'd have to use a utility like Postman, for example, to, build and test the usage of any of the APIs that they wanted to take advantage of. But using Swagger makes this easier to do through a single interface. So there's a new URL that's posted here on the slide that you can use to access this documentation. And when you go to this page, it will list all of the web services that are available for this release, along with all the API details. And this is what you'll see on the screenshot on the slide here. That's what this is showing us. You'll also be able to see information describing the usage of a particular command, all of the available parameters. You'll also see examples of what the request body will look like, as well as the response. And then from here, you can select if you want to try one, fill in the appropriate input for the request body, execute it, and then wait for the response to come back. And I believe this is another one of those that Mike is going to be showing you in a bit more detail in the demo. And then our last enhancement is an update to the email notification template. So prior to this release, the email notification template was restricted to include just standard out and standard error. But not every job will have standard out and standard error files. In this release, we have extended the attachment support to include both spool and job log. This new spool and job log feature will support job types such as HTTP, POJO, and J2EE. So with this feature, you can specify any combination for what you would like to have as an attachment. So it can be anything from no attachment at all to select attachments, or you can have all files attached. So that concludes the highlights for the 12.1 release, what's new. So I would like to just take a moment to thank all of you that have participated with us throughout the development process for this release. Some of you have, religiously joined our sprint review calls, listening to what we're doing, providing us with your valuable feedback. And then, of course, there were those of you that participated with us for the beta testing. And, I know that everyone's time is valuable and none of us ever seem to have enough of it in any given day. So I just want to, let you all know that we really do appreciate that you are willing to take the time and dedicate it to helping us progress AutoSys along. So merci everyone on that. So now I want to turn it over to Mike, and I am going to let Mike take the floor and show us some of these new enhancements that we've just introduced.
So as Valerie mentioned, this is the new URL that's available. So it's the standard, AEWS 1/API, and that will bring up this page here. And you will get a list of all the different web service calls that you can make. But the kind of more exciting part is that you can actually get the documentation online, but also kind of try it out as well. So I've got a job, test 100, and I'm going to put a comment. I'm going to force start it, related to a ticket that was opened up. I can then execute it and actually get, which is actually very kind of useful, is actually kind of an example curl command that gives me, what it would look like. So I could just copy and paste that, the URL that's being used, but it also kind of gives me the response as well. So I got a 201, so it's successful, and just like a regular send event, there's really no output unless there's an error. To get job information, I'll just use the same job, re-execute it, and this is kind of like a basic auto wrap type of response. So I can get the the description of the job name, the job type, and the kind of more important part, the status of the job. So if I want to check whether a job was successful or not, this would be a quick and easy way of doing it. I can also get multiple jobs, multiple machines. I can also get run information as well on the job. So this is take that off for a second. So if I execute this, again, I kind of get the job run information. So when did it run? When did it end? Again, the status. But if I add a little bit more to it, I can also get the events in there as well. So a little bit more detailed information. And again, this is kind of just trying it out here. So I don't have to set up, a job within AutoSys. I don't have to use Postman. It's just kind of part of the product at this point. But it's really useful when you're trying to develop something using the web services. And any of your application team members that are going to be using it probably be on here quite a bit. And again, it's all the standard ones that have been there before, but just kind of easier to consume and a lot easier to kind of test and kind of tweak things without updating code or anything like that. All right, let me switch over to the quick edit. So this is a 12.1, excuse me, WCC, and some of the quick edit changes, and this is actually, you'll notice is a command job. So this is kind of a new look and feel, or it was kind of got some tabs as opposed to kind of a long scrolling screen that it was in the previous versions. There's also some other enhancements in here as well. So you'll see on the command line, maybe I'm not sure where the file actually exists. I can actually click on a browse button and it kind of brings up a little file explorer for me. So I can go into the different directories and see what's in there. I can copy the path. I can actually just add it directly into the command line in the UI. I'll just copy it for right now. And just going to show you, so it just kind of copied where I went down the path there. But it's also available for standard out, standard error, and standard input as well. And if I want to use global variables, it will actually kind of start telling me which ones are available. And as I start typing, it kind of gives me the ones that kind of meet that criteria, but it also kind of gives me the expression for it. So again, I can copy it or add it directly to the to the field. I think there's something else on here I wanted to show. Yes, on the condition builder. So everyone's used to doing something like a success of test 1. But if I want to get a little bit more complex, sometimes it's especially for new users, sometimes it's a little intimidating on how to create those. So there's a new condition builder UI here as well. So it kind of puts what I have here. I can add another condition. It can be an and or an or. And you'll notice that it's kind of switching up here. It's kind of building the expression as I kind of go along. So if I'm going to do an exit code, maybe another job. What operator do I want? And if it's an exit code 4, I want to take this path. There's also the look back and cross instance that's available here as well. And I can also add a group, which is essentially, as you can see here, parentheses. And I can start adding things within the parentheses as a separate group. And I can, add additional subgroups, add conditions, really whatever I need to kind of build out that complex condition. Over to the configuration. And this is the hide panel option here. So if I'm using EAM, maybe I don't want the native permissions to show up because it's not something that's really important. And let me just refresh my screen. You'll notice I don't have permissions as an option on here any longer. So a quick kind of way to eliminate things that your end users may have questions on, but really shouldn't be using anyway. And actually, let me just create a new job type here. So here's some of the Kubernetes and OpenShift job types. And you'll notice that there's a couple of new things in here. So what is a connection profile? So this is something that was kind of introduced originally for Hadoop a couple of years ago, where you'd have essentially, how do I connect to the Hadoop endpoints or the edge nodes? This is a similar type thing, but inside there will be the URL, the ingress point for the Kubernetes cluster that you want to communicate with. Security profile, just as Valerie mentioned before, is a way to kind of provide credentials, tokens to connect to that Kubernetes job or cluster as well. And these are just kind of more Kubernetes or OpenShift specific field attributes here as well. So in a Kubernetes job, there's some YAML requirements. So you could actually load it from a local file. You can load it from the agent, or you can actually just kind of put it in stream here as well. And again, any kind of template variables that you need to pass. And this is actually the polling. So how often do I want to poll to see whether my job actually completed or not? And this is a little debugging. Do you want it off all the way down to the debug to be the most verbose? So those connection profiles are also available for some of the other job types as well. So you can use them on HTTP. Maybe in the header, maybe you need to pass some kind of authentication on there. So I could actually point to a secret, and this would be the security profile. So again, there's a certain format for it that may be getting a little used to, sort of like a global variable. But this will kind of build it for you. Or if it isn't just a global variable, again, just kind of start typing and it'll pick out the ones that meet it. There's also this WSO expression, which is a web service orchestration expression. So if you had a web service, another web service job that maybe pulled back a token, this is how you'd be able to kind of use that output. So a lot of kind of new kind of features in the quick edit. And Valerie, was there anything else that you wanted me to show today?
No, I think you've done a good job, Mike. Thank you.
All right, I'll pass control back over to you then.
So we have just a couple of minutes left here. Tony, do we have any questions in the Q&A?
We do have a couple of questions. I'll warn the audience before, if we don't have the right person on there to be able to answer the question, we'll take it away and get an answer to you. But the first question was, will users with write access automatically be granted override access when upgraded to 12.1?
I can answer that, Tony. So yes, so as part of the upgrade process, it's going to update any of the policies for the write access. If you have write access, it'll also give you the override as a default. So anyone who's currently doing it won't lose anything, but you can then go back and actually kind of remove the permissions if needed. So yeah, that is automatically done.
Excellent, thank you very much. The next question, is there any support planned for cloud-based database support, such as AWS RDS?
So for the cloud-based database offerings, we do support RDS for Oracle. I'm sorry, Oracle and SQL Server. So it's the same database types that we support, whether it's cloud or non-cloud, but we do support RDS for those databases.
And that's actually in our documentation as well. We have updated the doc to reflect that.
That's always good. Thank you very much for that. Okay, I have one other question. We are on 11.3.6 SP8. We're planning to upgrade to R12 or 12.1. Well, after this presentation, I hope it's 12.1, using a cloud platform. Any suggestions, best practices that can be shared?
Well, from a high level, installing on the cloud is the same as on-prem. It would be, AWS would be an EC2 image, or GCP would be a compute image. So your install would be the same. Where I see kind of the biggest potential shift is how maybe you do your HA. So, and I'll just pick on AWS because it's the one that I interact most with, is, has like availability zones. So if your AWS goes down or your machine goes down, you actually kind of have the option of kind of switching over to another zone. So it kind of makes it a little bit more transparent to your end users, and even to you, that perhaps you don't even need the same number of machines. You could still have in each availability zone, a primary shadow, or you can kind of maybe potentially reduce that and just use the it's kind of automatic capabilities of doing that. We've also seen customers using like auto scaling, so that if it shuts down, it'll automatically start up. So their downtime is kind of limited. But of course, when you're doing maintenance, make sure you turn that off. You don't want it starting when you don't when it's not fully complete yet. The other is also the database. So using things like SQL Server, always on, again, kind of makes it a bit easier in the cloud. If again, using different availability zones, so it's doing the replication for you, and the transfer from one to the other is kind of seamless. So maybe doing dual database isn't as much of a requirement for redundancy than it is in the cloud as it is in on-prem. So yeah, there are some differences. When you're in the cloud, it kind of gives you more options, specifically on the HAs where I've seen it have the biggest impact.
Thank you for that. The one thing I would add is I do know that support are very happy to review and comment on your upgrade plans. They do an upgrade plan review service. You just need to raise a SED4 ticket to let them know you're intending to do it. You then share the plan with them and they'll comment and feedback to you on your plan for any gotchas that are in there. The next question. Yeah.
Sorry, actually one more comment on that. So they actually are doing what they call upgrade weekends. So on a predetermined schedule, they'll actually be kind of fully staffed over the weekend. So if there are upgrade issues during those weekends, there's somebody in the office, just kind of monitoring the queue as they normally would Monday through Friday. So that's another option to kind of make sure that you have more readily support if required.
That's a very good point, and I have just shared the URL in the chat window that will take you to the Upgrade Weekend program. So thank you for that, Mike. The next question we have is, containers were previously noted to be coming in 12.1. Where is it in the roadmap now?
So are they referring to the containerization of AutoSys?
I'm making that assumption there.
So I think that what we had in the 12.1 release was the support for automating containers, which was the Kubernetes and OpenShift jobs. So the containerization of AutoSys is on our roadmap still. It's something that we're looking at, and I can't say for certain if we'll have a complete solution in this next release or not. It's something that we're still working on.
Cool, thank you. And I've got one more question here. I'm just going to have to read it first because I'm not an AutoSys expert. It might be gobbledygook to me. Hang on. Are the Azure ADF and Synapse plugins available for R12 agents? And is there a link? How do I get them?
Yeah, so those plugins are available for any release that you're currently running, any supported release. The plugin extensions use existing capabilities that are available and have been available for a long time. And if you are interested in getting access to one of them, just open a ticket with support and ask support for it. We are working on providing a marketplace that will be available so that you can go out and regularly see what we've been adding as far as new cloud native integrations are concerned, and you'll be able to download them from this marketplace site. It's a work in progress right now, but we'll hopefully have it available to you very soon.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And with that, we've reached the end of our questions. So I'd like to thank you, Valerie and Mike, for presenting what's new in AutoSys 12.1. I hope you've all found it useful and are looking forward to planning to upgrade to this great new release. Thank you very much for attending and enjoy the rest of your day.